Hey everyone, this is Chris from the Food Bank. Today's training, we're going to go over civil rights training. This is put on by the NDA and Food and Nutrition Services, which is the USDA. They put this together. This is something we got to go over every year, and hopefully this will be a little easier this year because we're doing a video version. So we can jump right into it. Here's the agenda of what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about civil rights coverage and legal authority, and then we'll go over these areas of compliance. If there's a section for questions, but obviously you're not going to ask any questions on the video. So at the end, feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and I can answer those via email, via phone call, via text, anything. So let's get going. And just a little more information on the presentation. There are a couple of slides that I will ask you to pause it and kind of read over it because there's a lot of writing on it. A lot of the slides I'll just read over. I'll throw some little bits and pieces in there for clarification, but the presentation is pretty straightforward. So just have that in mind when you're listening. So civil rights, just kind of a general explanation. The right for personal liberty guaranteed to U.S. citizens by the 13th and 14th Amendment of the Constitutional and Acts of Congress. And the terms civil rights and equal employment opportunity, EEO, are not interchangeable. All right, now we'll look at three of the civil rights concepts: stereotyping, the preconceived belief or oversimplified generalization about a particular group; a set of rigid and unfavorable attitudes toward a particular group that is formed without considering facts; and discrimination, the practice of treating people differently because of how we have grouped them in our minds according to our prejudices. So pretty common things in our society today, these concepts. So I won't spend too much time on them, but we got to go over them here. So, and then this is one of those slides that I'm going to say, go ahead and pause it. And if you feel like looking these up, feel free. These are just legal authorities, things that have been put into place by Congress and government throughout history, helping with civil rights. And we'll talk a little bit more about each category of these a little bit further in the presentation. But you can see like race, color, national origin, sex, disability, age are some of the big ones that have acts associated with them. So just keep that in mind as we go through. And then here we're going to look at the legal authorities within the kind of USDA realm, because it's kind of tiered. So the USDA has put in their own laws and regulations, and that's going to be in the document 7 CFR 15 A through F. So if you were to Google that, it would come up and you could read about it. And then from the USDA, it goes down to Food and Nutrition Services, a specific sect of the USDA, and they have theirs on FNS instruction 113-1. And then if we go even further into that, so within FNS, we have the different programs. And so with TFAP, the TFAP program, the regulations are in 7 CFR 250 and 251, and then CSFP has its own one as well. So it's kind of a tiered system of legal authority. So what is a discrimination in TFAP and CSFP? Treating program applicants or participants differently based on one or more of the protected classes. And the protected classes in TFAP and CSFP include, and this is where those legal authorities came in, race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and age. So now we're going to look at assurances. And we'll go into more detail as we go further into the presentation, so I'll just read over this. A contractual agreement in which a state agency, local agency, or other subrecipient legally agrees to administer FNS program services and benefits in accordance with all laws, regulations, instructions, policies, and guidance related to non-discrimination in program delivery. An assurance must be included in all agreements between federal, state agencies and state and local agencies and subrecipients. So when we go over this, the state agency would be the NDA, the local agency would be us, the food bank, and then subrecipients would be you guys as agencies in contract with us. So we'll look at public notification of civil rights and what that looks like. So in all FNS programs, all FNS programs must include a public notification system, and the elements of the public notification are program availability, complaint information, and a non-discrimination statement. And again, we'll dive a little deeper into this in the next couple slides. So elements of a little further in on the information on elements of public notification. We got program availability, inform applicants, participants, and potential eligible persons of their program's rights, responsibilities, and steps necessary to participate. So when looking at this, we are talking about, just general information as far as where to receive commodities in the program when we look at TFAP, and then also the certification of eligibility poster. That's going to let the applicant or participant know of how to participate and how they qualify. And then complaint information. Advise applicants and participants at the service delivery point of their rights to file complaints, how to file complaints, and the complaint procedures. This is really coming from the Justice for All poster. All that information's on there. And then the non-discrimination statement. All information, materials, and sources, including websites, must include a non-discrimination statement, and we'll look at that in the next couple of slides as well. And I kind of explained this already, but we'll go over it a little more in depthly on the methods of public notification. So prominently display the USDA non-discrimination poster, also known as the Justice for All poster. Yeah, you guys should all know about this already because it's part of your, when you come onto the program, we go over all this. Inform potential eligible people, applicants, and participants and grassroots organizations of the program and its requirements. Provide appropriate information in alternative formats for people with disabilities. Include the non-discrimination statement in all appropriate program materials provided to the public, and convey the message of equal opportunity in all photographs and other graphics that are used to provide program-related information to the public. So in summary, we have to inform the public of the program, of their civil rights included in the program, and then we also have to put the non-discrimination statement in anything that we post about TFAP. So here's the non-discrimination statement. You can pause it here and read it in full, or this is also on the Justice for All poster, so you can also look there. Here's the non-discrimination in Spanish. If you guys need this, let me know and I can send this over to you. And then there's a shorter version of the non-discrimination statement, which is this institution is an equal opportunity provider. We got the Spanish version there. And this version of the non-discrimination statement must be or may be used in specific circumstances. Agencies should check with the NDA to ensure the short version would be appropriate. So if you have any questions, just let me know. If you have a flyer with the shorter non-discrimination statement, you can send it to me and I can send it up the chain to see if it's appropriate. So if you have any questions, always reach out to me. Here's the Justice for All poster. Of course, this is the old one. So the new one does not have the Statue of Liberty on it. So if you still have the one with the Statue of Liberty on it, let me know and I can get you the new ones. All sites must display this poster in a prominent location for all to view. So what they're kind of saying in here and what I'm going to say to you guys is just post it where clients can see it at point of service or somewhere where it's not in an office or, a back room. We got to have it displayed where clients are receiving TVAP commodities. All right, so now we're going to look at complaints of discrimination. When an applicant or participant alleges different treatment based on the protective classes. Again, those are race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and age. So we're going to look at the types of discrimination. There's 3 that they point out, and these 3 kind of cover everything. Differential treatment, refusing service or using different eligibility criteria for certain applicants. Disparate impact, discrimination that is non-intentional but has that effect. And reprisal and retaliation, negative treatment for someone because they filed a complaint. Okay, now we're going to go over the complaint procedures, and I'll kind of throw some tidbits in there as well when we go over this, because not all of these pertain specifically to you. Complaint procedures: when a complaint is received at the state or local level, it must be forwarded to FNS Civil Rights Division, CRD being the Civil Rights Division, within 5 business days of receipt. FNS CRD processes the complaint from intake phase to investigation to closure. Confidentiality at all levels is extremely important. And then they keep a complaint log. Civil rights complaints must be maintained in a log separate from other program complaints. So that goes for, I'm sure that goes for FNS, and that goes for us as well. We have a complaint log in everyone's file in case something comes through. We keep that in there, and we keep a separate one for any civil rights complaints. And just so you guys know, this isn't a common thing. We actually haven't had any civil rights complaints sent into FNS, so this is just for your knowledge if it were to happen. So additional information: applicants and participants must file within 180 days of alleged action. And the applicant or participant can find the form from this URL there. This URL is also on the Justice for All poster. And applicants are not required to use the complaint form. They may send a letter in to the Office of Adjudication, and there's the address below. And again, I believe this address is on the Civil Rights poster, or Justice for All poster, excuse me, as well. All right, so civil rights training. And this is what we're doing right now, but we'll go into it a little more. Required so that people involved in all levels of program administration understand civil rights related laws, regulations, procedures, and directives. Local agencies, that would be us, are responsible for training their staff, volunteers, and subrecipients, that would be you, on an annual basis. Now, we haven't been very good at this because we've been doing it not in a video form. So I used to send out this PowerPoint and say, just go through it yourself. I decided that a video would be a better idea. Then you guys can just watch it and sign in, and we'll talk about that later. But we're going to be a little better with this because it is a compliance issue. So staff includes, but is not limited to, food pantry workers, recruiters, reviewers, supervisors of staff, and volunteers. New staff must receive civil rights training before participating in TFAP or CSFP activities. Limited civil rights training may be used for staff that do not interact with program participants, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides. All right, so a little more in training requirements for volunteers. Volunteers who regularly interact with program applicants and participants, determine eligibility, or handle personal information must receive full civil rights training on an annual basis. Training must first occur during the individual's orientation to the program. So this is the full civil rights training. So if you have any volunteers or staff that kind of meet those requirements in that bullet point there, they need to watch this and sign in. Volunteers who do not handle personal information and infrequently interact with program applicants, participants, or staff must receive, at a minimum, limited civil rights training, which covers customer service and other subject matter applicable to each volunteer's role and responsibilities. Training must first occur during volunteers' orientation to the program. All right, so limited interaction, civil rights training. If you look in the description below, there will be a link to a FormStack form, and that will have the 2-page, it'll look like 1 page in FormStack, but 2-page limited civil rights training that anyone who meets those requirements in that bullet point can read over and sign without having to go through the full training. So just keep that in mind if you have volunteers or staff that don't interact with participants very often. And then volunteers who do not interact in any way with program applicants and participants and who do not handle personal information are not required to receive civil rights training. So this is really for anyone who comes in and does inventory or packs bags for distribution. Anyone who's not really interacting with participants can veto and not do this civil rights training. All right, so required training for frontline staff, and this is kind of redundant because we're going through these already. It's all the information in this full civil rights training. So you can pause it and read all those, but we're gonna go through them throughout this video anyway. All right, this is CSFP stuff. If you're interested, you can pause it and read it, but it doesn't really pertain to TFAP at all. All right, so this is kind of some important topics we'll go over, things that we may not think of, but are important when it comes to civil rights and providing good service for all the clients that come through. So we will go over limited English proficiency, or LEP. So who are persons with LEP? Individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and have a limited ability to read, speak, write, or understand. Recipients of federal assistance, or federal financial assistance, must take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful, and I'll just pause here and say that's a great word for what we're going to be talking about in the next couple of slides about meaningful access to the program. So just keep that in mind. And this is, let me read that again so I don't interrupt myself, but recipients of federal financial assistance must take reasonable steps to ensure meaningful access to their program and activities by persons with LEP. Failure to provide meaningful access could be discrimination on the basis of national origin. And I'll just point something out in that second bullet, it says financial assistance. I know this is kind of confusing because you guys are just receiving food, but there is a financial part tied back to that. As far as that food has a dollar amount attached to each pound. So you guys are technically receiving financial assistance, even though it's not money, it's food. All right, so we're going to look at that meaningful access part of the last slide. The number or proportion of LEP people eligible to be served or likely to be encountered by the program, the frequency with which LEP individuals come in contact with the program, the nature and importance of the program, activity and or service provided by the program to people's lives, and the resources available to the recipient and costs. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the things that can help with clients that may be an LEP client. Language services, applicants and participants cannot be asked to bring their own interpreter. So big kind of thing there. We can't ask anyone to bring their own interpreter. And children should not be used as an interpreter. Now this one's a little interesting, I'll say that. Because a lot of times our clients come through with their children, and you may ask a question in English and the child responds, asks the parent in Spanish or any other language and responds to you. The child, I'll just say, you can't require the child to be the interpreter, but a lot of times it happens, and just know that we got to try and avoid that as much as possible. So let's look at some examples of language services: bilingual staff, telephone interpreter lines, oral interpretation services, written translation services. Community organizations, applicants can request to have an adult family member or friend act as a translator as long as the translation is effective. And just to point out some specifics of these, Google Translate is one. And then looking at community organizations, the Mormon Church has a lot of people that help and go out and volunteer that speak specifically Spanish, but I'm sure they speak a lot of different languages that can really help out. We utilize them quite a bit with our Mobile Harvest program. So, all right, so now we're going to look at disability compliance. What is the definition of a disability? A person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more major life activities, has a record of such an impairment, or is regarded as having such an impairment. And major life activities meaning functions such as caring for oneself, performing manual tasks, walking, seeing, hearing, speaking, breathing, learning, and or working. So reasonable accommodations. The state and local offices must provide reasonable accommodations to applicants or participants with disabilities when necessary. And we'll look at those reasonable accommodations. Provide the same level of service to applicants and participants in an alternative way. Require good communication between all involved parties, and must be funded through state or local offices and not applicants or participants. So we can't require the applicant or participant to fund reasonable accommodations. Okay, so examples of reasonable accommodations. Designated proxy, so this would be a authorized representative, somebody who the client sends in place of them to pick up the food. If you see a few of these clients come through, let me know, because I do have a form that the proxy or authorized representative needs to fill out to be compliant. So I can send that out to you guys upon request. Telephone interviews, home visits, captioning or computer-assisted real-time technology, services for deaf or hard of hearing clients, sign language interpreter, reader services for blind or visually impaired clients, and any kind of alternative arrangement for services. So a couple of big ones are just home delivery. That's a big one for people who have disabilities. I know a lot of you guys do that already, but if you don't, you may think about it if you have quite a few people calling in saying they need food assistance but don't have the ability to get to you because of a disability. Okay, so we're going to go over equal opportunity for religious organizations, and I'll kind of just go over the standards for this right now, and then we'll run through the slides, but I'll pretty much tell you all the information you need here. So the NDA, USDA, and us cannot differentiate between faith-based organizations or community-based organizations. So all of you guys as agencies are on a level playing field as far as TFAP. And this comes to access to food, access to capacity grants if we were to have them. Those are really the only two I can think of. But just know that even if you're from a church or a community-based organization, everyone's on the same level playing field. We, the state, and us as a food bank cannot discriminate between the two, obviously. And we don't, because we're all in the service of helping people and serving clients who are in need of food assistance. So we're in the business of getting food out to you guys, and you guys are in the business of passing it out. So that's just kind of a baseline definition of what we're talking about when it comes to equal opportunities for religious organizations. You can pause this and read over this slide. A lot of that information I just said pertains to this and the next one. So here on this slide has a specific spot in 7 CFR 16 pertaining to the level playing field for FBOs and CBOs. A couple things I want to point out in here is that if you're a religious organization, one thing that you need to think about is no client coming through is required to go into any services or classes in exchange for food. That's a violation of their civil rights. And that's in some of these bullet points. And then also, the NDA, FNS, and us do not require you to take down any religious symbols or art or scriptures during the food distribution. You can leave those up, that's totally fine. One thing I would, just kind of a best practice, is if you're having classes or anything pertaining to your religious organization, try and have it in a different area than the food distribution so no one gets confused that they're required to do anything when receiving food. So again, you can pause this and read through them. A lot of it was what I just talked about. Okay, so now we're going to look at compliance reviews and what that looks like. This goes from the state level to the local level as far as compliance reviews for us, and then that trickles down to you guys where we do reviews on you, and this could happen at the state level or the USDA level. So compliance reviews, what do? They examine activities by state agencies, local agencies, and subrecipients to determine civil rights compliance. FNS, civil rights and program staff review state agencies. FNS staff and state agencies review local agencies and subrecipients, and that, again, that's you as an agency and us as the local agency. Significant findings must be provided in writing to reviewing entities. And there's 3 types of compliance reviews: pre-awarded reviews, post-award reviews, and special reviews. So pre-award reviews, state and local agencies must be in compliance with civil rights requirements prior to approval for federal financial assistance, usually conducted as a desk review. Reports must be maintained in appropriate program files. Post-award reviews, and these are the ones that are routine. FNS and state agencies must conduct routine compliance reviews as identified by FNS Instruction 113-1 and program-specific regulations and policies. Assess all the civil rights compliance areas. Assess all civil rights compliance areas. That makes more sense. And then sample post-award questions are right here. Do printed materials contain the correct non-discrimination statement? Is the Justice for All poster displayed appropriately? Are program informational materials available to all? Has annual civil rights training been conducted for staff and volunteers? And so you guys will probably be familiar with these because these are on your monitor reviews when we come out and kind of do an audit of your programs. So those should be things that you have heard before. All right, so special reviews. These are conducted by the USDA Office for the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, independently or in conjunction with FNS program and civil rights staff. May be scheduled or unscheduled, so something to think about. May be specific to an incident or policy. To follow up on previous findings or non-compliance, to investigate reports of non-compliance by other agencies, media, or grassroots organizations, to investigate a history of statistically underrepresentation of particular groups. Ooh, had a trouble with that one. To investigate a pattern of complaints of discrimination. A lot of words on that one. Okay, so resolutions for noncompliance. These are things that we would have to do if we were to be found in noncompliance. Same goes for you as an agency. A factual finding that any civil rights requirements as provided by law, regulation, policy, instruction, and or guidelines is not being adhered to by a state agency, local agency, or subrecipient. So you can see that goes from the state level to us to you. Trickles down. Steps must be taken immediately to obtain voluntary compliance. So if you were to be found in non-compliance of civil rights, we would have to change that immediately. A finding's effective date is the date of notice to the reviewed entity. All right, corrective action plans should outline the actions that will be taken to correct any findings, the time frame in which the action will be taken, and how any non-compliance issues will be prevented in the future. Should be submitted to the state within 60 days of receipt of finding. Failure or refusal to implement a corrective action plan may result in the loss of federal assistance. So if we were to find something, we would require you guys to do a corrective action. And that was, it's pointed out in that first bullet point there. And the same thing goes for us. If the state found that we were in non-compliance with civil rights, we would have to do the same thing, a corrective action plan. And failure to do this would mean a complete stop of commodities coming to your organization, us as an organization, or the state, really. All right, so now we're just going to look at some basic customer service topics and bullet points here. These are all things that we should be doing anyway to provide good service for our clients. We are in a service industry, or we're in the service industry in a way. We're servicing clients who are in need of food assistance. So we should do things like smile and be pleasant, treat everyone with respect and courtesy, be caring and understanding, be a good listener, offer assistance, serve clients in a timely manner, apologize for any inconveniences, make clients feel appreciated, make sure program is available to all, and no discrimination or segregation. Really, we're servicing clients who are probably struggling right now in some way. So if we can be out there serving them with food assistance and also making them feel worthwhile and good from the experience, is really what we're going for. All right, now we'll look at a little bit of conflict resolution. And before I go over this, I'll just say, if you guys ever have a conflict that you're struggling with at your organization, please reach out to us. We're always here to assist you guys in any way. And so with conflict resolution, you want to define the problem, find the cause of the conflict, select an approach to resolve it, and take action. When we look at take action, we're talking about practice active listening skills, listen with intent to what others are saying, calm, non-defensive, and respectful reactions, seek compromise with within program regulations. If resolutions are not achieved, seek assistance from leadership, and that can be us. Afterwards, debrief with your supervisor and evaluate the situation and review strategies for addressing future conflict. So these are pretty common topics when it comes to conflict resolution. But I really would point out the calm, non-defensive, respectful response is a huge one, especially with dealing with possibly clients who are struggling, stressed, and maybe angry. So I think that's a big one. Calm and non-defensive, respectful reaction, I would point out, is the big one there. Whoop. All right, so that's it for the civil rights training. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, call me. A lot of you have my cell phone, so you could text me if you have any questions on it. Again, we'll be doing this every year. We're a little bit late this year because I was planning the video, but we'll probably be doing this every July. And yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it.